where I get my chance. You get your chance to ask me questions. All I get is a Christian name, and you can fire any question you want at me, beginning, Mark, with you.
Good evening, Nigel. We're 25 metres from the Ermine Street at the moment. It's an original route from London up through Lincolnshire to York. What's your opinion on what's happening with transport vis-à-vis the route of the original East Coast main line being upgraded? HS2 is even further away, 30 miles away from Lincolnshire. And the fact that the M11 was going to come up through Lincolnshire to the Humber Bridge, and it never happened.
Yeah, Mark, good points. Quickly, HS2, total waste of time and money. Exactly. What on earth are we doing wasting up to £150 billion on that? We could spend on other infrastructure projects to benefit tens of millions of people. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say, I suspect we're 25 yards away from the Roman road, not metres, personally, yeah. But that's just a personal thing. If we go back there. Look, the truth of it is that Lincolnshire's a lovely county. I've been here so many times over the years. It is a complete and utter nightmare to navigate. Just a nightmare to navigate. You all know that in this room. And yes, at very least, an M11 extension coming right up through the east of England, up to the Humber. That would be an absolute minimum, I would say. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, exactly. It would have... The hot spot that ends at Cambridge would have carried on further up into Lincolnshire. Yeah. And it would be easy for all the trucks that take all the salads and vegetables that are produced in South Links to get down to the capital and the rest of the country, yeah. And the ports, the channel ports.
Yeah, it's much needed. Mark, exactly. Thank you very much indeed. Next up is Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Nigel. Do you think it's time to remove the Barnett formula from Scotland to prepare it for it leaving the Union? Last year it was £33 billion, and obviously we take off their income tax receipts and their stamp duty contributions, and that'll probably come out, I estimate, around about £25 billion extra they get in Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is we do spend more per capita in Scotland than we spend in England. The same could be said of Northern Ireland and Wales as well, but it's Scotland that's pertinent and relevant here. I don't know about you, I'm bored to death with Nicola Sturgeon, constantly going on about this referendum. Yeah. It's not a referendum, it's a never-endum. I suspect there's a growing number in this room actually would probably be happy to see Scotland go. I do get the sense of that.
Let's have a national referendum.
I'm not one of them. I want the Union to stay. I want it to survive. I think the real answer is Barnett must be reinvestigated. It's just not fair on the English taxpayer. No. But I also think at some point, probably what Boris, if he's still there, but at some point the Prime Minister of the country ought to call their bluff. Yeah. Ought to call their bluff, have that referendum, they'd lose again, and maybe that would be the end of Nicola Sturgeon. That would cheer me up no end, I can tell you. Thank you very much. OK. Next, we have Matthew.
Evening, Nigel. And for the viewing public at home, I should declare I'm a local Conservative councillor in Lincoln for Moreland Ward as well. My question is about housing. So for over 2 decades, house prices have risen far quicker than salaries. House building and increasing supply has also not kept up with the increased demand as the population grows. Demand-orientated policies have failed to redress this issue, and I feel that there needs to be a much more supply-orientated solution to these problems. But what I want to know, Nigel, is what you think we should do.
Well, had it not been for your Conservative government for the last 12 years, continuing with net migration policies that now are exceeding what they even were in Tony Blair's time, if your population is rising, if you have to build a new dwelling every 4 minutes just to cope with the increased population due to immigration, you have got a massive problem on your hands. Part of the Brexit promise was we would get a grip on our borders and reduce the sheer numbers of people coming into the country, and that in turn would make getting houses, access to GP services a little bit easier. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, there is no question that we are going to have to build a lot more houses. And as somebody who is much more of a country boy at heart than a townie, that pains me. But it's just going to have to happen. Otherwise, we have a society in which young people cannot aspire to the things their parents and grandparents and generations before them had. I will just say one last thing on this, which is there are 1 million people, 1 million people on the social housing waiting list, and for them to see us spending £5 million a day on hotels for people that cross the English Channel is an absolute affront. And that's why I really entitled this whole programme, you know, will Boris get a grip? He needs to get a grip of these issues, otherwise your party is going to be toast at the next election. Thank you for your question. Right. Hannah.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
On the topic of monarchy, which British monarchs do you admire and why?
Queen Elizabeth II is, unbelievable. I mean, 70 years without any scandal from her, not so much the kids. And she's been wonderful. But of course, my favourite has to be the first Brexiteer. The first Brexiteer was Henry VIII. It was the break from Rome that actually led directly to the greatness of England. So Henry VIII, I have to say, is my favourite monarch.
Thank you, Nigel.
What's yours?
George III.
George III.
I'm currently reading his wonderful biography by Andrew Roberts.
Yep.
And he had to put up with quite a lot going on in his reign, which was nearly as long as our good queens.
Yes.
But also, interestingly, his son seems to be maybe on par with some of our current children. He was caught vomiting outside in public regularly. He threatened to kill himself just to secure a marriage proposal and kept demanding more money, and he was over £200,000 in debt, which is millions in this money.
Well, we have had our problems in the past with the royal family, but George III, I put back to you, Hannah, he did lose America, didn't he?
Yes, that was part of
it. Or was that a good thing?
Still hard to know, but that was quite hard at the time for him. But there were so many other achievements and things that he worked through as well.
Interesting. It's not a popular view. I haven't read the book. I have read other books by Andrew Roberts, and do you know what? I will read the book, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nigel.
And last up on this segment is another Nigel. It must be difficult having that name these days.
Yes, good evening, Nigel. I think we're a dying breed.
Yeah.
Do you think Boris will call a snap election as a last throw of the dice?
Right. Before I answer that, can I get an immediate audience reaction? Would you like to see a general election this September? Yes or no? No. Who thinks yes? Yeah, OK. Overwhelmingly no. As Brenda from Bristol famously said on that TV clip, oh no, not another one. Let me say this to you. If Starmer was to get a ticket from the Durham police, I doubt he will. I mean, Cummings didn't, although he was testing his eyesight, wasn't he, by driving through it? Yes. Perfectly reasonable, I'm sure. If Starmer was to get a ticket, the Labour Party would be in chaos. They would have a long leadership process to go through. And it's against that background that the rumour of a September general election is being talked about. Even if they were the circumstances, I think the public would say this. I think the public would say, we don't need a general election. You are halfway through. You have a whole host of promises that you made that you must deliver. And if you call this election, Mr. Johnson, you're doing it for your benefit and not for the benefit of the country. And I think if they did it, it would be a disaster for them. That's my view. What do you think, Nigel?
Well, I'm politically homeless at the moment. I voted Labour all my life.
Yes.
But following Keir Starmer, all that he tried to do to undo the result of the referendum, obviously I'm not going to be voting Labour anytime soon. I've never voted Conservative. My dad would turn in his grave. So you need to make a comeback, I think.
Thank you.
Obviously I did vote for you.